Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Betsperts Golf DFS Preview for the BMW Championship being played at, I don't even know the name of the course because that's typically Ron's thing. He is unable to make it to us because the people that were doing his internet decided to cut his internet. So he has been cut off, not for anything that he's done behind the camera, but just the internet people have screwed him over. So it is what it is. It's life. It's what happens. You got to think on your feet. You got to run with it. You got to roll with the punches. He did send us some fun things that we'll get into. He's busy sending through all his good stuff. And if you are unfamiliar with who we are talking about PGA Splits 101 on Twitter. Go check out all his jazz out there. Anything that he has will be out there on Twitter and on the Betsperts website too. So if you want to go and grab that, we are running a Betsperts promo, which is $1 per month for the rest of the season. We've got the fall swing coming up. This week, we've got the FedEx Cup playoffs finale next week, which is always going to be, I don't think we're going to do a show for that one, but I'll definitely be playing some DFS stuff because it's always fun to see how that kind of works out. But yes, it's going to be crazy. Go check it out. It's $1 per month. We've got all the articles that Ron and the boys are doing out there, all their picks. We've got the Discord, the whole shebang. And there's that beautiful search tool that I believe is now free still that Ron has been working on tirelessly when he has internet. And he has got all these cool functions on that search tool that are free to use. And Wilmington Country Club. There we go. Thank you, my man. It's a weird name. I knew it was a country club, but yeah. We are at Wilmington Country Club. It's the first time we will be playing there on the PGA Tour, I believe. And it's an interesting golf course. It's designed by Robert Trent Jones, and he has a very specific course template when he gets to designing golf courses. And it's 7,534 yards or something like that long. But there's three par fives that are 600 plus, two of them, and 560 something. So they're 1.2 miles long. I did the math earlier. So they are a long trio of holes. And once you eliminate those from the mix, the rest of the holes are rather short. So I'm going to refer to what Ron has sent us. He's got some interesting tidbits that he's slacking away on our Slack channel here. And he said there are massive sloping greens that we have to be aware of. And because of those greens, we need to be very aware that three-putt avoidance is going to be one of our key metrics this week, especially driving distance as well. The rough seems to be thick. The fairways seem to be narrow, but it's definitely accessible from the rough. If you're hitting a wedge, if you're hitting a 9-iron out of that rough, it is easier to do than when you're hitting a 5-iron, 6-iron out of some thick, lush stuff. So bear that in mind. The rough is thick, but if you're hitting it far enough, you can definitely benefit from that distance. And that's something that we're going to definitely look at moving into the slate. We've got some long hitters in this field. We've got some short hitters in this field. And just because distance is key doesn't ever mean that there are people that we don't want to play because of a lack of distance. That sometimes is the best way to go around being different. So let's dive into it. I'm going to pull up my stuff over here so I can make sure we know what we're talking about. We've got 68 people playing in the field, less people than the par. We've got 3 less people than par, so we're already under par. That's always good to start off a tournament. We've got 4 people in the 10K range. And just before I get into that, I do want to mention, I know Ron, and I love to have altering and differing opinions on what he and I believe. And I've thought about this for a few minutes, maybe longer than that. But the three-putt avoidance is an interesting thing because the greens are massive. And if you are not in the fairway and you're coming out of that rough and you're not controlling your ball out of that, you can still be on a green but 100 feet away, like we saw at the Open, like we've seen at Kapalua, those kinds of situations. But at the same time, this is a short golf course on the par 4s, Some par threes are about 200 yards long. So if you're coming from the fairway, I don't really think that three-putt avoidance is going to be that critical unless you're hitting bad approach shots. And if you're hitting bad approach shots, I don't want you on my roster anyway. I want you dialed in. I want you looking at birdie putts from the wedge range. So I'm definitely focusing in on players that excel from 100 to 150 yards in proximity numbers with their irons. And that person is not going to be Jon Rahm typically. And we've got Rory McIlroy at 10.5, Jon Rahm 10.3, Justin Thomas 10.1, and Willie Z at 10K flat, who just won last week. So that's going to be an interesting dilemma. Do we go back to a Willie Z? Is he going to pull it off again? Is Rory McIlroy going to come back with vengeance after missing the cut? We saw that Jon Rahm, and he's, if I'm looking at 100 to 150 on my model, he's 63rd in this field of 68 people from that yardage. However, I went and took a look at the Rahm Wedge Watch numbers, and Jon Rahm has played fantastic golf from that range last week. He, in every single round, knocked a wedge from 150 or inside 15 feet twice around. I know that's a lot of jumbling around there, but he's typically been incapable of hitting a wedge close. And there were multiple wedges that were like 4 feet or 2 feet. So he's dialed in. I love the fact that it's only been one tournament since the Open. Now that he's played in that tournament, we can really like just leech onto a few specific nuances that we see from guys that have come back from a break. And I think Jon Rahm's been working on his wedges. I'm willing to take a gamble on him being very, very good from that range. And it's an interesting situation because there's a lot of people that it seems like ownership's going Jon Rahm's way. I've got ownership right now. It's looking around 20%. We've only got 68 people. So ownership has to go somewhere. But if Jon Rahm's sitting right there underneath Rory McIlroy, I would find it tough to believe that Rory would be less owned than Jon. They're looking very similar right now. I would definitely lean into the Jon Rahm avenue, although I think Rory might be the better play typically on paper. But I don't think people are going to be wanting to play Jon Rahm. And I think his wedges are coming around. If he can get the putter dialed, we've seen what Jon Rahm can do with that driver. It's an absolute weapon. The driving distance there is not a problem for Rahm. He leads the field off the tee. So we know he's good off the tee. What can the wedges do? Jon Rahm. Rory McIlroy missed the cut last week. We know he's got the driving distance off the tee. We know he can putt well. He's going to be high owned. Cam Smith's out. So we've lost a stud at the top there. He's not out the tour yet, but he's out of the field. Got a hip injury. So anyway, that's what's going on there. If you're looking for the play, it's Rory. I think he might be one of the highest owned guys in the 10K range. It's up to you. If you want to roll with him, go for it. Make sure that you're going to be playing a lot of him. Got to be probably in over 50% of your lineups because remember, we've only got 68 people in this field. It's a no-cut event. So we're going to look for guys that make a ton of birdies too. That's another important thing in an event like this. There's guys that you can take bigger risks on that have higher upside, that even after they've possibly had that round two where they could have missed the cut, you can come back firing. And just one more thing I want to mention to you guys before we get into the rest of the slate. When you've come from a venue that was like the one we played at last week with a lot of water hazards all over the place, someone like a Max Homa who lost strokes on approach in pretty much every round, he hit his ball into the water every single round. So that's just one bad shot that cost him a lot of strokes. So feel free to dive into like the strokes gained approach from last week and really see Wu played badly enough to miss the water and still lose strokes on approach, or Wu played badly by hitting their ball in the water. Water penalties around the new course that we're going to, Wilmington Country Club, is not going to be as severe. I don't think there's going to be that many issues when it comes to having to dodge penalty strokes, dodge penalty areas. I think the boys are going to be firing at these flags. I think it's going to be a fun event to watch. So just bear that in mind when you're doing your research. Justin Thomas, he leads the field in baseline proximity from 100 to 150, and he also does it over the last 24 rounds. So he has been sensational whenever he put a wedge in his hand, and he's very good off the tee. Not as good as Jon Rahm or Rory, lacks a bit of distance, lacks a bit of accuracy relative to them. However, he's still in the top third of the field off the tee in this field, and he's always sensational around the greens. He makes a ton of birdies because he hits those wedges so close all the time. So Justin Thomas is also a fantastic play. Just keep an eye on that ownership. It's going to be really interesting to see how things unfold at the top here with guys having to have to be owned. It just has to be that way. And we've seen that people don't typically want to go back to a winner the week after they've won. Willie Z's $10,000 sitting underneath Justin Thomas, Jon Rahm, and Rory. What are people going to want to do with him? So he's an interesting play. And Willie Z is one of the best iron players in the field behind Justin Thomas. So if you're leaning on iron play, you're looking for distance, we know Willie Z is good on those aspects of the game. The putting, it is what it is. It's kind of like you just have to deal with it. He putts typically very well on a Thursday and a Friday, and as the weekend unfolds, gets a little tense. But he can win tournaments without putting lights out. So Willie Z's are not a bad play at all. If you're looking to pivot from some people, we've got Patrick Cantley right underneath him, who's always been a popular play. He is one of the safest plays you can have. I was looking at Cantley's stats the other day. Patrick Cantley's had, I believe, 6 tournaments this year where he's gained strokes total every round of a tournament. He's just so consistent. He's so reliable. He's so boring. Paddy's ice ain't melting. The boy is stone cold. He's so good when it comes to the safe plays. Now, he's 9.9 in that 9K range. Nothing from an approach standpoint really pops from a Patrick Cantley. He does the majority of his damage with the putter. Keeps himself in the fairway. He's one of the more accurate drivers of a golf ball here up in the elite range. He's very good at putting, and he makes a lot of birdies because he's a very good putter. So if you're willing to rely on Patrick Cantley's putter, that's the avenue of success. I don't think he's going to be dialing him in from 100 to 150 like Justin Thomas and Willie Z, and you know, we saw Jon Rahm coming into form. So interesting things there. Patrick Cantley. Next up, we got the world number 1, Scotty Scheffler at $9,800. And he, my friends, has been sensational on the ball striking front. Over the last 24 rounds, he leads the field. We've got Justin Thomas, Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, and Scotty Scheffler is leading the field in ball striking over the last 24 rounds. So just bear that in mind. We know the putter has been very bad, very, very bad. And that could easily be a deterrent for a lot of people. He's cheap. It's one of the first times he's been outside of the 10K range, I believe, recently. Not sure what he was last week, but he's typically in that 10K range with the other boys, and he hasn't been there for a while. So that's what's going on with Scotty Scheffler. If you're willing to stomach, I saw him on the putting green the other day doing the kind of drills that we do when we're growing up. If he gets that putter dialed, he's one of the best balls. He is the best ball striker right now entering this field. Makes a lot of birdies, even though his putter's been bad. It's a non-cut event. He's going to have 4 rounds to really get himself dialed. It's an interesting play. Tony Finau is going to be very cheap, $9,700. Just won back-to-back tournaments before last week. Also, striking the hell out of it on that side of things. Recently and in general, his putting has got remarkably better. Excuse me. Lots of speaking. I need Ron in here to keep me, give me some time to sip some stuff. But Tony Finau is going to be about 25% owned, and that's not a surprise because he's one of the best golfers in the world right now. And he's $800 cheaper than Rory McIlroy. We just missed a cut last week. So bear that in mind when you're dealing with Tony Finau. if you're going to play Tony, you're going to have to play a lot of Tony Finau in order to get some leverage on the field. So that's a situation you need to find yourself in. I don't know if I'm going to be going to Tony just because I'm very aggressive when it comes to DFS, not typically wanting to, play a guy like that, especially in such a small field. You got to take your chances. If you're playing cash game, Tony Finau's your guy. Duh. No brainer. If you are trying to do a single entry, throw Tony Finau in there with a few other sneaky plays that your boy's going to give you as we get down there. We'll see what cooks. Xander Schauffele, also very consistent, very reliable. He's shown that he has upside. People seem to have forgotten that he won multiple events in a row right before we went into the Open. Since then, hasn't really made himself everyone's darling like we were hoping he could continue that momentum. So he could be lower owned. And I think ownership is going to be a key thing to keep in mind with 68 players in the field, especially with so many good guys. There's going to be guys that are going to be the black sheep of the family. They're going to be left alone because of just some random things. So if he's sitting right underneath Tony Finau, Xander Schauffele is not a bad play. Matt Fitzpatrick is also just one of those guys, kind of like Xander. He's just out here pumping out top tens all the time. But from a proximity standpoint, he's not very good. I think he plays very defensive golf on the approach side of things, relies on his short game, relies on his putter getting the damage done. He's very good on the greens, typically. But when it comes to putting from 0 to 15 feet for birdies, he's also not the best. So I don't know if I'm going to play Matty Fitz this week. I don't think he's going to give me enough birdies in a 4-day stretch. His finishing position might be there because he's always avoiding bogeys. He's very good at that. We don't even know what this course is going to do. We could see scores in the 20s. If we're going to be hitting wedges in to 9 of the holes, people could go very low. The par 5s are long. I don't know if you can reach all of them. There's water in front of the one. So I think people are going to have to rely on their wedges, and I don't like Matty Fitz's wedge game at all. I love his driver. I love his short game, but if we're going to be relying on iron players and wedge players that are very good from that range, I'm going to have to pass on him there. Colin Morikawa, on the other hand, man, he's so good from that range. Very, very good. But then you got the short game issues with Colin Morikawa. We know his putter can come and go. The around the green game has just been atrociously bad. And now we've got these massive greens. So he's going to be on them putting, which he's typically better at than when he's chipping, if that makes any sense. So yes, you've got these bigger greens. People should be hitting them more. They should be chipping less. So if you have a guy that's got around the green game deficiencies like Colin, like Victor, we will get to shortly, like Sam Burns, seems like this is just the zone to go to because they're all typically very good putters at times, especially Colin can come hot and cold. Sam and Victor, very good putters. They're going to be putting a lot more when they should be chipping on other golf courses. So bear that in mind. Big greens, less chipping, more putting. And some of these guys are much better putters than they are chippers. So it's an interesting situation. So Colin, very, very good from 100 to 150. His approach play in general is fantastic. He's not the longest in the world, but he's very accurate off the tee. Makes a decent chunk of birdies when his putter rolls. What kind of Colin are we going to get? Nobody knows. It's not a major. I don't know. I'm totally okay hitching my wagon to the next two boys over here. Sam Burns and Victor Hovland. Very good drivers of the golf ball. Got length, and they are pristine specimens from that wedge range, which we've been speaking about. And they're going to find themselves in that wedge range a lot more than Colin because they hit it further. They might be coming out of the rough. But if you're missing on the right side of the fairways, that's okay. You'll have yourself angles out of that rough. You can control a gap wedge out of that rough. These guys are world-class individuals. I'm not concerned about that. We know Sam and Victor, they're literally blueprints of each other. Very good putters, typically can be very bad chippers of the golf ball. And if they're going to be hitting their ball on the green all the time, they can take advantage of their strength, which is putting. They're not going to be chipping. They might every now and then, but I think they'll be on the green a lot more. They both make a lot of birdies, 8th and 7th in the field. Sam Burns, Victor Hovland, I will probably be playing them in a lot of my lineups together. And apart, obviously. You want to differentiate every now and then. But they're two very, very interesting individuals. They're two unique characters when it comes to the around the green stuff. I love their putting. I love their approach play. I love their driving. That's what we're looking for here. Those three boxes for me are where it's at. We got Sungjae and Tom Kim next at 92 and 9100 bucks. The two Korean boys. Looking like Sungjae is going to catch a little bit more steam than Tom, which is fine by me. We've got Tom Kim sitting right in between Cameron Young and Sungjae Im, which is a very nice spot for me. And a little secret I love about Tom Kim is he is the most accurate golfer in this field of superstars. He leads the field in accuracy, and that to me is more than enough to make up for a deficiency in distance. His average drive is 301 yards, so it's 9 yards shorter than the tour average or whatever, but that's okay. If you're in the fairway 15 to 20% more than the rest of the people, you have a significant advantage. And we know that Tom Kim's irons are really, really good from any distance. And we haven't got a massive sample size of that. But Tom Kim gained off the tee and on approach in all 4 rounds last week. So bear that in mind. The guy's a ball striking sensation. He lost, I think, 3.5 shots on the green putting on Friday. Still made the cut, losing 3.5 strokes putting. His ball striking is a flaw this big. And the moment he putts, it's through the roof, folks. Tom Kim, absolute full send for me. Absolute full send. I'll sprinkle in a little bit of Sungjae if I want, but I think he's going to be really low owned between Sungjae and Cameron Young. We're going to look for some low owned guys that have immense upside. He's a very safe play. He makes a lot of birdies. He's 9th in the field in birdie or better percentage. We've got Justin Thomas. We've got Rory, John Rahm, Cantley, Scotty, Xander. He's 9th in this field. So love to see that from Tom Kim. I've got him for an outright again. I think he's fantastic. I think he's missed a bit of steam after finishing inside the top 20 still last week. But there's others around him. Cameron Young has got way more distance off the tee, and I think people are going to love that about Cam Young. We'll take our gamble. Cam Young and Tony Finau are going to be absolute fates for me. I think they're great plays. Got to take your shot. If Cam Young and Tony Finau come in at 25% a pop, and people have both of them in their lineup, that's a lot of people that are going to be out of contention if they land up sucking. So that's what you're going to hope for. Ownership, got to hope for the best. We're going to get to some guys that are like Jordan Spieth and Shane Lowry underneath Cameron Young, which is even better, especially Shane Lowry. He's going to be very low owned, and Shane Lowry's approach play it's world class, folks. Shane Lowry is one of the best iron players in the world. He's currently one of the best. He's been one of the best all year. And his biggest de facto problemo has been his putter. He's 66th in the field in putting over the last 24 rounds. There's 68 people. We got Luke List in the same area as Shane Lowry. However, the reason I'm very, very excited for Shane Lowry is that Shane Lowry gained putting in all 4 rounds last week. It's been a while since he showed up. I don't know if he played after the Open or if this was his first event. Either way, seems like if we're going to cherry pick a few stats, and in DFS, I'm always willing to pick on a few stats with a very small sample size. Like, if this guy showed me he's playing well in the 4 rounds putting, let's go. For a bet, I don't know if I want to bet Shane Lowry for a top 20. I don't trust that long-term sample size. But in DFS, aggressiveness can pay off. We saw that with Troy Merritt. He was a cool player I really enjoyed last week. And we saw his approach play was trending in the right direction. And then he kind of dropped the ball there. So we probably go back to him again. But just saying, like this, if you're looking for like a 12-round sample size of a trend, go to that guy. Be aggressive. Don't be scared to lay your cards on the table, It's how you win these things. Unless you're playing cash games, unless you're playing safe, it's tough. You got to be aggressive. You got to go out of your way to make sure you can be different. And I think Shane Lowry's putter might be showing some signs of life again. We're going to go to a different putting surface. That adds another variable to the equation. But Shane Lowry is sensational. He's third from 100 to 150 over the last 24 rounds. So love to see that from Shane Lowry. He's a very good wedge player too. The putter seems like it's fixed itself a little bit. Let's go. The same goes for Jordan Spieth. He's also, the ball striking has been a little lackluster, but Jordan Spieth at 4% owned in a field like this, I don't care what stats are associated with him. It's Jordan Spieth, 4% owned, basically. So let's rock and roll. You got to be different. Definitely can, Jordan Spieth, Tony Finau combo, maybe, especially if you throw some Shane Lowry in there. Joaquin Niemann, ball striking sensation, very good on approach. He's going to be high owned. We'll just skip right over him. Just know he's a good play. If you're going to go to him, play a lot of him. Max Homa has been very good off the tee lately. Love to see that. He's always good off the tee. Will the irons show up? Who knows? Who really knows? Hideki Matsuyama also withdrawals, DQs, the whole shebang. If you're looking to take on risk with massive upside, Hideki's that guy. But I think 3 out of his last 5 starts are DQ or WD. And one of them's a cut as well. So I think he's made the cut in one of his last 5 events. We'll see what cooks there. Let's keep scooting down the board here. I can't run through everybody. I've kind of got a little carried away. Miss my man Ron. I hope your internet's coming around, my friend. But I hope you're still with me, folks. It's been a fun 27 minutes already. I can't believe we're in this deep already. Corey Connors is one of those guys. He's 46th in distance in this field. People won't be going to him that much. Corey Connors is the 9th best ball striker from 100 to 150 in the field, folks. And that's what we're relying on. And he's going to be hitting a lot of his shots from the fairway. He's the 3rd most accurate driver of the golf ball. And he leads the field in good drives gained, which means drive on the green, bang. He does that the most out of anybody in the field. It includes Justin Thomas, John Rahm, Rory McIlroy, all the boys we spoke about at the top. So that's what's going on with Corey Connors. His putting has kind of been trending in the right direction too. He's not as bad as he used to be. His around the green game is typically his biggest weakness. We've said bigger greens, less chipping, more putting. Good for Corey Connors. His 3-putt avoidance also very nice if you like that kind of thing. But I think he's going to be dialing it in. Love Corey Connors. Terrell Hatton, I'm never a fan of. We'll skip over him. Aaron Wise, shout out to Ryan Noonan. I know you love him, and there's absolutely no reason not to. Aaron Wise gained at least half a stroke every round last week off the tee. He is so good with the driver. So you've got that set up already. You're most likely going to get an Aaron Wise that's putting himself in stake source positions, A1 all the time. Let's do that. And then his putter has been doing all sorts of interesting things. It flashes. He's been holing putts from far away. He's also been putting very badly at times. So you love the volatility of the putter. You want it to spike, especially if you can keep an Aaron Wise that's going to be piping his driver. And he's also very, very handy from 100 to 150. So you love to see that from Aaron Wise. The ball striking, 16th in this field. And this field is loaded with ball strikers, folks. Absolutely loaded. So Aaron Wise, very safe play from a ball striking standpoint. Who knows what's going to happen on the greens? But man, he's got some upside if he can get that putter rolling with the way the ball is coming off his club face. So that's really nice there. I'm a big fan of Russell Henley. I know a lot of people aren't, but he is 3rd from 100 to 150. So if you know Russell's going to be in the fairway, he's also 3rd in good drives gained. So he's going to be in the fairway a lot, going to be hitting wedges, and he's very good from wedges. He has a significant drop-off in proximity ratings once you get outside 175 yards. And you should see himself inside that yardage the majority of the time this week. Love to see that from Russell Henley. Who the hell knows what the putter's going to do? You take your chances on a Russell Henley putter when he can be the best iron player in the field on any given week. So you can ball strike it. What can you do with the putter? He's $7,800. I'm willing to take that chance. We got Cam Davis as looking very, very high owned. Not surprising. Got insane distance. The approach play is top 20 baseline, top 20 the last 24 rounds, top 20 from 100 to 150. It's looking good. He's an awesome play. 20% owned, looking like. You decide. You're going to have about 50% owned Cam Davis if you want to play him this week. Are you cool with that? The around the green game seems like his biggest weakness. Going to be putting a lot, folks. It's going to be fun. He's very good on bent grass. Cam Davis, he might be one of the chalkier guys I go to. I don't know. We'll see. Keep an eye on ownership. Keep an eye on how you construct your rosters. Make sure you don't put a Cam Davis and a Cameron Young. If you got two Camerons in your lineup this week, you're probably going to be duplicating with a lot of other people. So just bear that in mind. There's only 68 people in the field. Let's keep checking out some other alternatives. Davis Riley has immense upside. He's a very good driver of the golf ball. Off the tee, his stuff is trending. We're just waiting for Davis Riley to get it together on the approach side of things. He makes a lot of birdies, even when his irons aren't that good. So I love Davis Riley, especially under Cam Davis. He's sitting right there between Taylor Pendrith and Cam Davis, who are both very long hitters and are going to be quite high owned. So Davis Riley is definitely going to see some ownership reduction there, sitting between those two chalky plays. And Taylor Pendrith is a great play. If you're going to play Taylor Pendrith, play him like a top 5 or a top 10, even an outright. And I don't know if you want to do a 15% owned Taylor Pendrith, folks. That's an interesting situation. I have to mention it. No one's going to tell me not to. Keegan Bradley, distance off the tee and accuracy. He's one of the best iron players in the world. He's very good from 100 to 150. And he's also good at three-putt avoidance. I know I said that's not a big thing, but I have to give my boy some props. And his putter has gone from being very good and consistent this year to kind of flashing hot and cold. And he gained 2 strokes when he played at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, which was on bent grass. So I think he's going to do good stuff on the greens this week. I think he's going to find himself in proximity ranges that suits his game. He's going to be hitting from the fairway a lot more than the other long hitters too. He hits it very accurately from the fairway. So I love myself some Keegan Bradley. Let's take a peek here. They're starting to get into the interesting ranges where Emiliano Grillo is another guy that's going to be quite high owned. And finally, because he's deserved it, he's been playing sensational golf for his standards. He's had multiple top 2 or T seconds in his last few starts. He's been putting really nicely. If you go check out BetMGM, you can get him for a top 20 at plus 275. And then leave him out of your DFS lineups. I know this is a DFS show, but that's how you accept chalk in your life. Like, fade the chalk, go bet him top 20, plus 275 on BetMGM. So that's your little tidbit there. If you want to go to like a guy like Scott Stallings, who had a bad week last week, missed the cut, he's been hitting his iron sensationally well. He might be less owned because people just realize he missed the cut last week. We're also down here in the $6,600 range. It's an interesting situation to be. I'm struggling to find guys I'm obsessed about. Emiliano Grillo was one of them, but he's looking very high owned. So that's the situation you find yourself in here. I might go back to Troy Merritt. He's a really good putter on bent grass. He's actually 5th in the field over the last 15 rounds. Very sneaky. And we saw his irons were trending in the right direction before last week. Didn't quite pan out on the Sunday. But if he bounces back with the irons, his game is looking real sexy over the last 12 rounds. So I love to see what Troy Merritt's game's getting up to. Tom Hoagie's also an interesting player. I know Ron probably would have advocated for him. Shout out to you, Ron, again. Hoagie's approach play, phenomenal stuff. He's very accurate off the tee. He's lacking distance, but he's one of those guys. He's so dialed in from 125 to 150. If he's 25 yards behind Taylor Pendrith, probably not that much, but might even be more. Whatever. if he's far behind those boys, he's still very, very accurate off these irons. And he's going to be in the fairway, which is, I think it matters. Why would you rather be in the rough when you can be in the fairway? So if you are in the fairway, that's a significant advantage on any golf course, really. He's good. He's good stuff. The putter, who the heck knows? But any week, the putter can do anything. And if we're dealing for a Tom Hoagie in a field like this at $6,300, I'm okay with that. I really am. So another few guys. I know Brennan Steele's been ball striking the heck out of it lately. Short game, you take a gamble on him. Trey Molinak's going to be very, very, very high owned down here in the $6,200 range. It's one of those things. Lucas Glover, though. I would really like to talk about Lucas Glover for a few more minutes here because he is going to be one of those guys that just hits fairways and greens the whole time. He's going to do it for 4 straight rounds. We saw he finished 3rd last week, which is very intriguing. We'll see how many people want to go back to Lucas Glover that's played some good golf. It wasn't a win, but it was very, very impressive golf from the man. It's interesting. It's interesting. And feel free to get sexy down here in the 6K range, folks. These are still very good golfers that have upside. And they can definitely finish inside the top 10 quite easily and save you a bunch of salary. You saw JJ Spahn was playing very nicely until he had some bit of a meltdown. So people like Matt Kuchar on these massive greens can really take advantage of their short game if he's putting well. But that's the thing. He's really good around the greens. He's going to lose a lot of that ability to make up on the field around the greens if he's on the putting surface all the time. So that's what's cooking here, folks. I hope you had a good time watching me ramble for a good 37 minutes. Ron's out with internet connection issues. Go check out the Betsperts promo we're rocking for the rest of the season. It's good stuff out there. Everyone's putting out fantastic info. Everyone cashed the Willie Z ticket there at the Betsperts squad, except for your boy, because I had my man Cam Smith out here doing all sorts of savagery things to me. But yes, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Good luck this week. Kick some butt. Be aggressive. Play some real leveraged lineups. Catch you guys soon.